Now, Owen Jones is a political commentator in the UK, incredibly famous, got like 1 million Twitter followers now, so I'm sure most people watching my stream do know who he is. Now, just coming off of that video that we watched about the woman who confronted Starmer in Liverpool, Owen Jones has tweeted out about this, filmed a video about himself, talking about how, the thing about what they did just then, where they went in to find Keir Starmer, challenged him on what he's done to the Labour Party and what he's done moving forward, and what he's done, by breaking his pledges and essentially being duplicitous in the way that he became to become Labour leader during the leadership election. He thinks that what this woman did by confronting him and filming it is a good plan. So he put out a video on Twitter. Let me find it. I have it down here somewhere. Titled "Keir Starmer is a liar, a con man, and a joke." Let's watch.
Keir Starmer is a professional political con man. Don't use those words lightly. In order to become leader of the Labour Party, he made a series of solemn commitments, pledges he called them, which were radical domestic policies and party unity. Now, he didn't just slightly break that mandate, or mostly break the mandate. He has brazenly, overtly delivered the exact opposite of what he said he would be as Labour leader. Now, I know most of the media have let him get away with this because their view is lying your way into crushing the left and conning your way into crushing them. That's good politics. I know his army of supporters online, the most tedious, ridiculous Waitrose customers that you will ever come across. They think it's all fine because they don't believe in anything. They made their entire political identity Brexit and stopping Brexit for years, and now support someone who advocates the hardest form of Brexit possible. Stockholm Syndrome does not cover it for these people. But the fact is, that is the truth. He is a con man. He is not someone anyone can trust. He is somebody who lies as a matter of course in order to secure power. He's not fit to be leader of the Labour Party, and he's not fit to be Prime Minister of the country. And I don't care how much that annoys the most tedious people on the internet, because it's the truth.
100% based and correct build. Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's 100% correct in everything that he said there. Based off what we saw earlier, right? That clip was someone saying that they'd spoken to, people in the staffing office saying that, these pledges are vague enough that we can break them and no one will notice. Well, you didn't get what you can't outsmart these foxes. We knew, we understood that we'd been duped and that we'd been, as I haven't been duped. I voted fucking Rebecca Long Bailey, but all the Starmer voters, they'd been duped by his pledge to try and continue that legacy, right? And the amount of time that he spent trying to justify him breaking multitudes of these different pledges over time. And it's very, very clear that he did that with the view to making sure that he could win the Labour leadership and then purge the left. And that's what he's done, expelling huge scores of members, as the pensioner from Liverpool quite rightly said. And it was a con. It wasn't entirely a con. It is a liar. And all of his supporters, they definitely are the fucking middle class Waitrose shopping type. So I'm not gonna beat around the bush about that, right? These people will continue to support him regardless. Again, these are the supposed adults in the room who think that they call themselves adults, yet these are the people who think that party politics is just like supporting a football team, where the red team is always correct because they're the red team, rather than because they have the best policies or the best solutions. And we're in the middle of a huge amount of cost of living crisis. Energy bills are set to raise 73%. We'll cover that later. And we're not getting proper solutions where Keir Starmer's saying, oh, I'm going to regulate to be able to solve these issues. Well, we have a regulator and they're not doing their job right now. So I don't know how they think that is going to overall solve the issue. But I digress. And then he then quote tweeted himself and tweeted out this particular tweet. If you see Keir Starmer out and about, call him what he is, a con man and a liar, and film it. Enough of letting our politicians get away with this grotesque levels of dishonesty, which, that is good sentiments. I agree with those sentiments. It's exactly what she did there. It's exactly what people have done like Green New Deal Rising have done in the past. It's exactly what people like Green New Deal Rising have done to Priti Patel. It's what Steve Bray has been doing to literally every single politician in Westminster over because he's someone who really, really, really cares about the European Union, which is cringe, but at least he is out there putting his views into practice and making his voice heard, unlike some people who just tweet about how much better the EU is on Twitter, but and put EU flags in their bio. But again, that is a bit of a digression. And just as always, whenever Owen Jones tweets out something, people have lost their goddamn minds. They've absolutely lost their tiny minds about Owen Jones, and it is honestly the funny. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. Here's Jackie Smith of expenses scandal fame, where her husband used the taxpayers' money to watch pornography, and she also claimed her sister's house as a second home when she didn't even live there. This is her saying, I'm owning being a tedious, ridiculous Waitrose customer. Now tell us about winning elections and changing people's lives rather than just writing columns and sulking on Twitter. This coming from the people who lost the general elections in 2010 and 2015 with a lower percentage of the vote by quite a long margin than what Corbyn got in 2017, and actually lower than what he got in 2019 as well, right? These people who are worse at winning the votes of the general public in this current era than Jeremy Corbyn is, and so they're trying to tell us that we don't know how to win elections? Fuck off. Come on. And literally, where's the Abby Wilkinson quote tweet of this? Let me find it. Abby Wilkinson really put her to... Yeah, see, absolutely, 100%. Looking how... And she can even win her own seat in 2010. Off a band, she lost a fucking minus 13 points back then. Oh, fine. I definitely responded to this tweet, so let me find it. It's just, these people don't understand that there needs to be some kind of integrity in politics. And the fact that they think that lying is basically only bad if the blue team does it rather than the red team does it. And their sole focus is on this weird optical game, which they don't even particularly play very well. Especially when we're seeing in a time when people are actually on our side now. Nationalisation as a policy platform is supported by like 60%. It's like a supermajority. It's 60% of the country, as opposed to like 15% who say absolutely not, and then a bunch of don't knows. Right, we have a supermajority in favour of nationalising these energy firms, and it's preposterous that these people think that they're playing smart politics by just completely denying that this would be a good idea. It's nonsensical. Imagine if this tendency put half as much effort into developing policy to deal with multiple crises we're facing right now as they do into combating Owen Jones. Like, Owen Jones breaks these people's tiny little minds, right? He did an article like a few months back about how, why should we not hold Keir Starmer to account for dishonesty when we're trying to hold Boris Johnson account for dishonesty, which was a really good article. And all of the fucking check marks on Twitter, they also lost their tiny little minds of like the mildest criticism of please don't lie to us, and they're just happy to back it up. And they think they're pulling the wool over our eyes by saying that this is just factional infighting. No, this is factional infighting that you started. We have the proof. We have the Ford report now. We know that it was factional infighting that you started. And they act like the left, or the cranks as they call us. They act as though we literally would like the Labour Party to become CPGB Part 2. When no, we just want a candidate that's going to properly adhere to the social democratic values that unite both sets of the party. And they think, no, we have this singular neoliberal vision. We're market fundamentalists. That's all we are, right? Again, as Goddard pointed out in chat, basically this kind of adherence to the neoliberal framework that everything is either free capital or radicalism. Those are the only two kind of poles that you have. And they lose their tiny little minds over it. There was another time when Owen Jones just tweeted out stuff like he's one of the few people in this country who is especially in the media and especially in the fucking Guardian, who's explicitly pro-trans, uses his platform to agitate for the needs of trans people, to back them up, to talk about the issues that are going on and the lies, the explicit lies that are being talked about by gender criticals in the media and the press. We've seen it, right? Alison Bailey lost against Stonewall. She lost against the Chambers on all but one of the counts that she ran her libel case on, which is basically just that they tweeted out that she was investigated when they didn't do for somebody else, which classified as discrimination. She lost on every other count. All the news outlets in the fucking country are acting like this was some brilliant win when she actually lost against Stonewall, and the court found that Stonewall didn't instruct GCC, right? He's the only person in the media, especially in The Guardian, right? The incredibly transphobic Guardian, who uses his platform to speak about trans rights explicitly in the terms that the trans community would like it to be spoken in, right? By actually putting our opinions across, by calling out the gender criticals, not talking about as the trans question or as a debate, but what it actually is, a minority of people who want to have their rights acknowledged, and a group of fringe fundamentalists who are using their power to try and disenfranchise an even more disenfranchised minority, to turn us into a cultural wedge issue, right? To try and strip us of our rights. That's what they want to do. That's what J.K. Rowling wants to do. Was to take away our rights to transition. Was to take away wants to repeal the Gender Recognition Act, for fuck's sake. And he's the only person who doesn't give these people the favourable media coverage that they really want, right? And he calls out how transphobic The Guardian has been over the course of his time writing there, right? And because he was calling out other people who wrote there, people like Suzanne Moore and Hadley Freeman, right? People tried to get him fired from The Guardian, saying that he was being a misogynist who was bullying people in The Guardian, just because he wrote tweets out saying, maybe guys, maybe don't be transphobic. I swear, he calls himself a socialist, but I've never seen him do anything that is other than advocate for, basic, like, European-style social democratic principles. And he absolutely breaks these people's brains. They honestly, I've never seen anything quite like it. Like, the way in which people are getting mad, the people with the fucking, you've never seen something quite like it, right? People who have a Ukraine flag, a EU flag, and a Liberal Democrat symbol in their Twitter username, right? Going, oh, you can't call us Waitrose customers. How dare you? I'm definitely not middle class, and I still shop at Waitrose. I'm like, come on. First of all, it's not every single Waitrose shopper. My parents shop at Waitrose, and these are people who still disagree with Starmer's lack of vision, right? There are plenty of people who shop at Waitrose who don't have this particular opinion, but maybe there's certain kinds of people who are just explicitly so kind of brain-addled about Owen Jones's position as someone who's on the left wing of politics in this country. They absolutely went into a fucking frenzy about a tiny comment about the kind of middle class people who don't see like why radical action and change needs to happen to fix the broken issues of this country, right? The people to which politics is just some kind of game, some kind of sports team game, rather than something that existentially affects huge members of the country. Just here going, oh, really is the Alan Partridge of the English left, rather than him, again, some throwaway comment about people shopping at Waitrose, rather than the actual factual basis for what he's saying here, that Keir Starmer is indeed a liar. And then there were also people out here, from the tweet that he made saying, go out and, film yourself telling Keir Starmer that he's a liar and a con man, right? Which is stuff, as I said, Green New Deal Rising have done this. Plenty of people have done this. In recent months and recent weeks or whatever. It's hardly something that is particularly out there. Like, Steve Bray literally shouts at politicians all day and all night, and all of the fucking EU flag in profile picture Twitter accounts, they all clap, oh, well done, Steve Bray, you hate Brexit. But as soon as Owen Jones wants that same scrutiny to happen to Keir Starmer, as well it should, as it should any politician, Jeremy Corbyn included, right? It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, you should be, willing to deal with some kind of level of animosity from the public, because based on some kind of level to which that you are not doing your job properly, right? 100%, doesn't matter where you're from. Like, fucking remember when Ed Miliband got hit by an egg and he just kind of brushed it off and changed his jacket? I was like, oh, clearly that person doesn't like my policies, right? That happens, it's fine, whatever. And these people, like, what's this here? Can you imagine if I tweeted this about Owen Jones? He'd be completely outraged. It's a clear incitement to harassment. Really nasty stuff, and given attacks on murders of MP in recent years is completely disgraceful. Like, he's just literally asking for people to go out there and use the power of free speech and the power of protest to be able to hold politicians to account. Where did he say anything other than tell him that he's a liar and film it? And then because of the traction that was gained by I think it was Andrew White is her name, the clip of her that went viral on Twitter, right? I'm sorry, the level to which these people just have the worst kind of Owen Jones derangement syndrome, where no matter what he says, they will just find a way for people to hate him for what he was doing, for what he does. It doesn't matter what position he takes, no matter how reasonable or measured or sensible, because again, he's hardly a radical actor in here. Like, when has he ever called for like a violent revolution? Literally never. And he calls himself a socialist, right? Again, he's just a social democrat as far as the actual UK political discourse goes. And these are the same people, as this Twitter user quite rightly points out. They cheer when Livingston, Corbyn, and Abbott were harassed and going batshit crazy over an Owen Jones tweet where advisors to call Starmer a con man and film it. Like, it's he's absolutely right. These are people are hypocritical. They have no principles and no policies. All they care about is red team good. I hope red team win. Anyone who says anything bad about red team, I dislike. And that's the level of political discourse that these people engage in. It's so fucking childish. And Owen Jones is absolutely correct. And to you to make that point, like, I'm sorry, that's you people again. He's not said anything here in either about gender critical people or in his column where he talked about Keir Starmer's lies fucking months ago. And people just they absolutely lost their minds about it. I don't how these kind of these Twitter aggro-centrists who do again, these are the kind of people who just believe wholeheartedly that they have no ideology, that all they are pragmatic centrists who believe about treating every policy on its merits. Well, no, really, they are incredibly ideological. First of all, their ideology is being a glory sport who just wants to win for the sake of winning. And second of all, their ideology is just neoliberalism. They take the status quo and they go, okay, the status quo that I think is the correct status quo, let's move back to that. These people haven't. They believe that they're just like the singular rational people. Again, when the people who are actually making the case for some kind of left-leaning policy platform for Keir Starmer, we're the pragmatists. We're the ones trying to find solutions for the the litany of problems in society. And then these people refuse to take us at our word when we know, and we can show the way in which that it works in other countries, like the nationalised energy ADF in France, en français, it's only got a 4% rise in energy bills. We're dealing with 73%. I wonder why we might be, as a political bloc, agitating for public ownership of the energy sectors. So, well, that's not fiscally realistic. It's not fiscally realistic for people in our country to have to deal with skyrocketing energy bills, so much they have to have fucking warm hubs for people to go to. Like, for pensioners they choose not to put the heating on, right? And here's Owen Jones trying to say, look, if someone doesn't want to support these, I will absolutely use my platform to call them out on their bullshit. And the aggro-centrists, they just lose their tiny little minds over the slightest of criticism from the left for for Keir Starmer. He's for some reason has to have again broken people's brains, really. Like, and you see like the responses to that as well. He's not a liar. He just lied to be elected and is now lying to appeal to Tory voters to be elected. But as soon as he's as PM, he'll be great. Or so you prefer the Tories. Again, these people are fine with liars as long as they wear a red colour rosette, and that's it. That's the case. It's football politics. Like, it's Harry Potter politics. That's what it is. It's Harry Potter politics. There are no good or bad actions. There are only good and bad teams. That is how these people view society. It's how these people create their political vision. And Owen Jones, who's a straight talker, who summarises his issues in a much more kind of pragmatic framing than anybody else here does, and they hate him for it. And I think that's part of why these Waitrose shoppers or whatever feel the way that they do. Is because again they're not on the front line seeing the issues that's happening because of all of these rising bills, and he's right to call them out. And honestly, it's mind-boggling that people could compare what he is saying here to the deaths of MPs. It's quite frankly ridiculous.